Call the school board meeting to order. And Mr. McInnes, I know we got a lot going on today, so.
Yes, sir. One procedural matter for the board, if you would take up first. As you know, Governor DeSantis issued Executive Order 2083, which directed the Florida Surgeon General to issue a public health advisory for certain persons, recommending that they remain in their homes. Dr. White tonight is following the advisory in the governor's executive order and is requested to participate by phone. Under your current policy, we would need you to vote to authorize that. Later in the meeting, you'll be waiving some of those rules, but for right now, it'd be appropriate to have a motion to authorize him to participate and vote by phone.
Okay.
I will move that we authorize Dr. White to participate in the meeting by phone.
And I'll second.
Okay, and a second by motion by Mr. Destin, a second by Dr. Kelly. Any discussion? Hear none, let's vote. And that motion carries 4-0. So let's move down to changes to the agenda and approval of agenda. Approval of the agenda. We do have some changes. 2.1 discussion agenda added item 4.4 school board policy 01-27 emergency policy relating to school board meetings. Now, just so you know, before the meeting, we have switched 4.4 and 4.3, so we're going to just invert those because of the order that we needed to be able to do 4.4. So with that being said, that I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I move.
Got a motion by Ms. Vanchek,
I'll second.
second Dr. Kelly. Any discussion?
Just to make sure that I understand what we're doing, this is the one that implements the governor's allowing us to do telephonic or electronic
Yes, sir.
meetings and waive quorums.
It
and-
will implement that and then let you make decisions about how you want to meet going forward once you've done that.
All right.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and second. Any other discussion? Hear none, let's vote. And the motion carries 4-0. So before we get going,
Dr. White's voting.
oh, Dr. White?
My vote's yes.
Okay,
Chair.
sorry, Dr. White. So it is a 5-0.
That's okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So but before we get going, as y'all know, this is unprecedented times. A lot has happened since our last school board meeting. And just so the public knows that this meeting is being conducted under the guide of the CDC requirements. If you notice that we're all within 6 feet, and I know our cameraman is going to show the general seating area there that we are in compliance. We have the 10 and under threshold in here. So with that being, just wanted to let the public know that we are following the guidelines. So.
And Mr. Bryant, you might mention that there is another seating area in the complex set up for the public tonight,
Correct.
where there is a television monitor where the public can both see and hear the meeting, and staff are manning and staffing that room to bring anyone here that would be here for public comment.
Correct. Yes, and just in case people didn't hear that, we do have a separate seating area for anybody that would be here to speak on any particular item under public comment. So thank you, Mr. McInnes. Okay, so with that being said, we are to the point of 3.1 and public comment. And we do not have any public comments, so let's go down to section 4. 4.1 is the resolution number 20-10, a resolution of the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, ordering and providing for the holding of a referendum election to determine if the electors in the school district of Okaloosa County, Florida, approve the levy by the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida of a 1/2 cent per dollar sales surtax for 10 years in order to finance a comprehensive plan to construct, replace, expand, improve safety and security at modernized school facilities and campuses countywide, and purchase equipment, including technology and school buses, land acquisition, and to service bond indebtedness, therefore, if any, providing for proper notice of such election, providing certain other matters in connection therewith, and providing an effective date recommended by the superintendent for approval.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Dr. Kelly makes a motion that we approve this resolution.
I second it.
Second, Ms. Vanchek, any discussion?
Chairman, other than, as you say, the unprecedented times we're in makes us having difficulty getting our arms around how much money we would generate,
Right.
what we can do with it. So, you know, it's just necessarily isn't filled in with details. I hope before we get to November, some of this crisis is better. So we'll be able to do a little more thorough job of that. But at this point, this is the best under these circumstances I think we can do.
Okay.
Agreed.
Any other comment? Okay. Hearing none, let's vote. Dr. White, how do you vote?
I vote yes, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. That motion carries 5-0. Okay, so let's move down to 4.2, certification of the Okaloosa County School District Facilities FISH data for 2020 presented by Dr. Smith, Program Director. So we need a motion to approve of that.
So moved.
Mr. Destin makes a motion.
I'll second it.
Second, Ms. Ivanchek. Any discussion?
This is something we do every year, so it's pretty routine.
Right. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, let's vote. And Dr. White, how do you vote?
I vote,
Okay.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I vote yes.
Okay, thank you. That motion carries 5-0. Okay, so we're moving down to 4.4, which is school board policy 0-1. Let me get this straight. School board policy 01-27, emergency policy relating to school board meetings, presented by the superintendent. So, Mr. McInnes?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Before you tonight is a proposed emergency policy relating to your school board meetings. This emergency policy is being brought forward and recommended by the superintendent in order to implement the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order 2069, which of course stands on its own as an order of the governor, but you have board policies that address many of these areas, and by adopting this emergency policy, you will bring your policy in line with the governor's executive order and therefore clear the way for these type meetings to occur should you need to conduct those meetings. Two things I would ask tonight as you consider the emergency policy. First, as part of the process to adopt an emergency policy, we need the board to make certain findings and determinations. Those were printed on the agenda under public comment in full, and we would ask tonight that you first consider adopting the findings that support and authorize the adoption of an emergency policy. You see the superintendent's findings are laid out as to what the danger and need to protect the public health is, and also an outline of the fairness of this process in adopting the emergency policy. So that would be the first matter before you for consideration.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept the facts and the public content.
Okay. Good. And I don't know why I'm lost right now, but
Get a second?
Second.
Okay,
I'll
yeah.
second. I'll second.
thank you.
Move on.
All right, so we got a motion and a motion to approve and a second. Any other discussion?
In our documents we have in front of us tonight, this is the 1 through, sorry,
On 4.4,
you
public
have 1.7.
content.
You have 7 points there under it.
you're right.
That's correct. And those have been out there in the published
They
agenda,
have.
available to the public.
Right.
Yep.
And I can appreciate the fact that all of these are laid out to support us continuing education for our students, which is what we all exist for. So thank you for that, laid out clearly.
Dr. White, do you have any comments?
No, I'm fine with the reasons, certainly in light of the president and the governor and the Florida Surgeon General and the superintendent's comments. I'm fine with this.
All right, so we have a motion to approve and a second, and any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, let's vote. And the motion, Dr. White, how do you vote?
I vote yes, Mr. Bryant.
So the motion carries 5-0.
And Mr. Chairman, now the actual emergency policy is before the board for consideration. This is policy 01-27, emergency policy relating to school board meetings. This policy outlines the fact that the coronavirus is a public health emergency as declared by the President of the United States and the Governor of the state of Florida. It also references the Governor's Executive Order 20-69, which he issued to give agencies in the state of Florida flexibility in conducting their public meetings in these emergency public health times. The balance of your policy Emergency policy simply brings your current board meeting policies in line with the governor's authority. And if you adopt this, it is not mandating that you will have virtual meetings, but it does set the path for you to have those meetings should you determine those to be necessary.
Okay.
And this
Thank
policy
you.
by state law that allows for emergency policies would be good for a 90-day period and would have to be revisited before it could go beyond that.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear moving forward. This is where we would ask for public comment on this before we go for a vote, correct?
That's correct, yes,
Okay.
sir.
So with that being said, do we have any public comment regarding this policy? Okay. We do not have any?
Are you trying to find out?
Ms. Thomas.
Paul has actually got it to, so.
I have a question, so maybe that'll help while we're
So,
waiting.
yeah, so
Can I
before
ask
we
a
do
question?
that, let's
Okay.
go ahead and we'll make a motion to
Okay.
approve. So
I'll make that motion.
Dr. Kelly makes a motion.
We'll second it.
Second. Now,
Okay, all right. The item C about a quorum, it says, am I reading this correctly, that they're waiving us having a quorum to do voting?
What it's waiving is that there be a quorum present in person, so that would allow you to
Okay.
be present. You still will need a quorum to vote, but it can be virtually if you
At
adopt this
meetings.
emergency policy.
Okay.
And that is specifically part of what the governor's executive order. He waived any state laws that would require a physical quorum to be present at one location for that.
So theoretically, we could do this without any of us being present. We could
Yes,
do it
ma'am.
virtually and everything. Okay,
That's
thank you for
correct.
that clarification.
Yes,
Appreciate
ma'am.
it.
okay. So any other discussion? Dr. White, any discussion?
No, Mr. Chairman, I'm good. I understand it.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we'll take a vote to approve. And Dr. White, how do you vote?
I vote to approve.
Okay, so that motion carries 5-0.
And that policy now becomes effective immediately and will give you the flexibility to fully operate under the governor's executive order and your own policy should you need to do that.
Okay, all right. Any other comments for our attorney while we're at this point?
No, I would just like to express appreciation. I understand this is an unprecedented situation, and to have drafted that and under the timeline, thank you for doing that for us and for taking care of us and our safety while we try to conduct business for this district. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Everybody concerned. Thank you.
Yes. All right, so we're going to go to 4.3, which we'll talk about the temporary school board meeting schedule and meeting procedural options, including virtual meetings through June 30th, 2020.
Mr. Chairman, the way that the meeting has been set up tonight, we believe is fully compliant with the recommendations of the CDC for the social distancing and for the protecting the health and safety of the public. We simply need guidance from the board as you move forward as to whether you want to maintain this type of setup in your meetings going forward, and do you want any adjustment to your meeting schedule over the next 90-day period. Those are decisions for the board. Should you choose to direct that the superintendent set these meetings up virtually, we would then, of course, bring you back a recommended set of procedures for a virtual meeting, including the type of platform that would be used and how the public would be involved with that. If you're not prepared tonight to decide whether or not to go virtual, then I would simply say that you have two options. You either could authorize the chairman and superintendent, if there were further orders or directions to cause people to stay in their houses, to make the decision to structure it virtually, or you could simply choose to have an emergency meeting and the board could then make that decision itself to go virtual. Those are options that are out there for you. And at that point, we would then develop the appropriate protocols and procedures for you to meet virtually.
Okay. So what we'll do is, since this is a very unprecedented thing that we're discussing here, Dr. White, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. What is your feedback on how we move forward with our meetings?
Well, Mr. Bryan, unless the other board members feel differently, and therefore I might be persuaded to have a different opinion, my current thoughts are that it's sufficient for you and the attorney to make a later determination. should our meetings need to be virtual. And of course, at that juncture, that would involve all of the school board members in an emergency meeting. I don't know that that decision needs to be made now, but again, my colleagues may have some different thoughts that certainly I would, entertain should there be any different thoughts.
So I just want to make sure I hear you. So you're like, you would like to keep it as is, keep our meetings that are scheduled moving forward?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. That it's okay with me.
Okay.
Now, I may continue, given the advice and the recommendation of the governor and the Surgeon General, to attend these meetings in the fashion that I am now.
Right.
But I'm sensitive to the fact that my colleagues, they may wish to continue the meeting as it is now and physically be in attendance.
Sure.
Or they may have other thoughts, and if they are willing to express those, then that's okay too.
Okay.
But I think what I'm trying to say, and I'm struggling a little, but what I'm trying to say, Mr. Bryant, is that should you and the attorney determine, say next week or in 2 weeks, that this meeting needs to be virtual, then you have to ask the attorney. But I think I understand that you could call for an emergency meeting. We could have this discussion again,
Right.
and the board might choose to, at that juncture, do a virtual meeting where there would be no physical attendance.
And,
I do have a question.
okay, can I comment to him real quick?
Please.
So Dr. White, I just wanted you to be understood that I wasn't trying, I don't want you to think I was trying to put you in a position to make a decision. I really appreciate your comments and your thought. I know you put a lot of effort into going through these types of issues and making sure that we're all on the same line there. So thank you
Yes,
for your input.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Bryant.
Yes. Dr. Kelly?
So I have a
Thank you,
comment
sir.
and a question. The question is, when we're saying meetings, are we using the term loosely to also include workshops?
That's
So
the
we're-
direction that you need to make tonight, is to how many meetings, how many workshops, that's all subject to the board's direction here tonight.
Okay, and so then my comment would be, as we continue to make suggestions and comments tonight, to include the school board chair, the attorney, and the superintendent. I didn't hear superintendent and Dr. White's, but in those emergencies, so that you would be involved in that. Okay.
Just so I'm clarifying what Dr. White said, and I think I agree. What he's saying at the moment is we'll proceed forward with the same schedule, and in the event that some new guideline comes down, you and the attorney and the superintendent would call an emergency meeting in which we would adopt those new guidelines as far as virtual, if it's necessary. Is that correct? Dr. White, did I get that right?
That's the way I interpret
Yes, sir, Mr. Destin. I think you and I are on the same wavelength.
Okay.
That's
So
okay
I
with
have
me,
another
but
question.
again, I'm not the one that's physically attending. So, but yes, sir, that's correct. That's how I see it.
So I have a question
Okay, Doctor.
for you as the chair, and maybe for the superintendent together. Do we need to continue with 2 workshops, or can we go down to 1 in this particular time, or what is your feeling for the need that we have?
If I can, Mr. Superintendent, I'll go ahead and make my comment. And I was on the same page as Dr. White. I think in light of everything, well, I shouldn't say in light, but in how things are progressing, things are changing so fast. But for us to continue on, I think it kind of shows some normalcy to our staff, to the people that we represent. And I think we've shown tonight that we can conduct a meeting within the CDC guidelines and give everybody a sense of protection by coming to a meeting. So, but that would be my direction. So,
I'm good with it. I just wondered how you felt.
yes, ma'am. And I can't speak for the superintendent, but
Well, I'd like to ask something about the term virtual.
okay.
Do we have the capability of some kind of, and I'm not very up on this, but I've heard the term Zoom. That is a format you can use. I'm sure there are others. Do we have, would that be something that would be pretty easy for us to set up if we all, not necessarily that program, but on some kind of program like that for us to do it before I think about whether we need to even do that at all. What do you think?
So we definitely have the ability to go virtually in terms of these school board meetings.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're going to get into the specifics, I'm going to ask Mr. Horton to kind of explain what might happen virtually.
Okay, thank you.
So we would have a couple of options, and we'll follow up on some of the specifics, but clearly if the board stayed in this format or went virtually through telephone, through phone conferencing, what we would probably do is establish a line for the public to call in at certain points when public comment was made available. We could then broadcast that, get the same kind of information they provide when they come to the board, name and address, and Mr. McGinnis's instructions about speaking length, and we could allow that to happen telephonically. And so there wouldn't necessarily be, in that case, when you all are calling in, I don't think the need for video, but all the audio recording would be there and all the comments and all the votes. So that would be my first suggestion, how to do it in a format that would allow folks to be able to listen to the audio of the board meetings. And I don't know that that would be necessarily inconsistent with some other boards might be doing across the state in those, when they've decided to do that.
Yeah, we I think, can consider those options. I can tell you that boards that are looking at this, primarily I'm seeing two different things across the state. Some that have set a phone line up for that, others that have asked for comments to be emailed in, and they've set a time frame for those to be received prior to the meeting, and then those are made part of the record. That's the two options I've seen so far between boards are those two ways.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. All right, yeah. So we know that we can do that if we just, even if we decide tonight
Right.
to stay with this, we know that if things get worse in a few
Right.
days, we get something else down where we feel like we have to be responsible, stay away, we could move to that and know
Right.
what we're going to. That's what I want to know, is
Yes.
where we were going to be going to if we had to do that.
Yeah, and I think, I know me and Mr. McGinnis and Mr. Chambers have talked in length about this, and you know, it's just unprecedented times. So
Yeah, right,
you know,
that's
and you know, and I think we're doing everything we can in the power that we have to conduct school board business meetings in the compliant manner that the CDC, the state of Florida, the governor, the president, everybody has dictated. So, and obviously today we've shown that. So, I like I said, I just think we can continue to move on, and if that does change, then we now have the authority to call an emergency meeting and change that to where it would be virtual.
Yes, sir, and your current board policy allows the school board chairman to call an emergency meeting. The superintendent or the school board chairman or a majority of the board can call an emergency meeting under your policies.
Right. Okay.
And Mr. Bryant, the only input that I would give would be just a few things. So one, so as of today, so as recently as a couple of hours ago, the state of Florida has extended our students not being in school through May 1st. And so which means that if we were to come back, we would come back on May 4th, if we were to come back, which of course we're prepared to be in this online environment through the end of the year. So that's one thing, and I bring that up because, as you know, things are changing daily, even multiple times within a day. The other piece is, as you know, because we've already kind of lightly alluded to it, is the Surgeon General's recommendation that individuals 65 years of age or older recommended that they stay indoors, as well as those who have underlying health issues. And then there's also a piece which also encourages those who can work from the home to work from the home. So within our school district, you know, we have established in essence what is essential staff. So we have essential staff that is at the district level, at the school level. So we have a number of individuals who are working from home, and they're performing work from home. I say all that to say that, as you know, even right now within the school district, the coronavirus, in terms of what we're doing, has become all-encompassing, where staff is focusing strongly on, one, making sure our students have an online learning environment where they can be successful. Two, understanding that there's going to be glitches along the way, there's going to be bumps and bruises along the way, and that we can attend to those glitches and get kids back in their online learning environment as quickly as possible. 3, making sure that our teachers and our staff are safe during this time and they can do the job that they so love to do. So I just say all that as you all make your decision on whether we have board meetings as they currently are, whether they go virtually, whether we were to do once a month board meetings. But whatever the case is, I'm good. But just wanted to give you just which I know you all already have the big picture of it, but just kind of laying that out there in terms of where we are.
Right. And I know in our discussions that we talked about, especially like tonight, we made a point to have the people that needed to be here tonight are here. So, and I think moving forward with our future meetings, if we continue to go as normal, I think in the spirit of how we've done it before, we've always encouraged those staff members to call ahead of time. But if they have to be at a meeting, then we will give them the same accommodations like we would anybody else. We still, in my opinion, we still have to conduct school board business, and I know the next meeting we have is going to be full. So we got a lot of things coming up. But just to reassure the staff that might have to be in attendance, we would definitely let them know, and we would give them the same courtesy like we would anybody else that would be at the meeting that particular day or night. So,
But, Mr. Superintendent, what I'm kind of hearing you saying is that if we could conduct this virtually, that's what you're asking workers in the district, if they can do it beyond physically showing up and can get their job done, you're saying you've gone to that format, correct?
So I'm not saying that that's how this board meeting,
No.
how board meetings need to be conducted, but I am saying that throughout our district, we have a large number of our employees who will be working virtually from the home and doing a good job in that fashion.
So we probably need to consider if we can do our job as board members like that, we might, or fellow board members, we might want to consider that. If we can, adequately get the job done, then we should be looking at that. I'm just putting that as a suggestion. Not saying I'm voting on it or anything, I'm just saying, if we can do our job, why risk anybody's health? I mean, this is great, but why go there if we can adequately do it? I don't know how you guys feel, but.
Well, I would have one question, and tonight we have another area set up where the public could, and I suppose where staff members could be. Won't that scenario work for workshops where those staff members that we think, or that you think need to be in attendance could go to that area? Or, as my fellow member suggests, they could actually do their testimony virtually if we had to. So I see there are ways to do it where we can not have the crowd of staff, which is what we're trying to stay away from, but still have the workshop meetings, because this is the biggest crisis this country and most of us will face in our lifetime. And we don't have less work, we have more work. We just spent, $250,000 on computers, and we're doing things like that all the time. And that is proper and needed to be done, but still, we have a job to do, and we should do our job also. So, I think our suggestion that we stay with the schedule now and ask the superintendent to look at innovative ways to do the workshops and have those that we need to be there to testify and do it and keep their health in a protective custody, I'd like to say, and make sure we don't put them at risk. That's where we should move, because as we just learned, the workshops and the agendas are going to be, they're not going to be less, they're going to be more most likely. And we have a job here that we have to do, and we need to do it with as many safeguards as we can, but we still need to do it. Otherwise, we're asking a lot of the essential staff and all of the teachers to work full time. Some of the teachers, a lot are from home, but I don't see giving us half a load and everybody else has to carry it full.
So are you recommending we still do meetings like this?
Unless there's something that changes, and I would like for the superintendent and Mr. Horton to look at how we can, for the workshops anyway, how we can have those folks available either like we've done tonight with the public or in some other virtual manner, so that we don't have to cram them into this room.
Right.
So let me make sure, do we need to vote on this as far as, is this a voting action here?
At some point, when you wrap up your discussion, we would ask that you vote just to give direction as to
Okay.
how you want that to
All
happen.
right. So, Mr. Superintendent, anything else that you'd like?
No, we will accommodate whatever the direction is. If we end up having workshops, we'll make sure that there's 9 in here, and the 10th will be the person who comes in to present it if needed.
Dr. Kelly?
Well, I haven't had the privilege of being in the workshops, the same kind of agenda meetings that you have. So I'll just ask the allusion of all the new business that is coming forward. Do you believe, Mr. Superintendent, that we should have workshops on the same schedule that we've had? You think that they're warranted face-to-face in here? I'm certainly up for anything that you recommend, so.
Correct. And do I
Okay.
think workshops are warranted? I do.
The number and the,
I think that
and
there's a
going
lot
to
of
your
business
point.
to still take care of as long as we are doing it in a fashion which we are,
Right.
where we're following the CDC
safe.
guidelines.
Okay.
And
Right.
I do appreciate what Mr. Destin said, and we do have a lot of employees who are going above and beyond right now, and as long as we can do this safely, I'm for that. I merely brought up some of those conditions earlier just to make sure that you all had all the information that you need
Right.
to make a decision.
Okay. All right. So
you need a
I'll
motion?
entertain some motions here.
I will move that we continue with our present schedule of workshops and meetings, and that we ask the superintendent to use the criteria necessary to make those safe for the staff under the CDC guidelines.
Okay.
You mind if I say one other thing?
Sure.
And with this, we will make sure that with Mr. Horton and his staff, if the need were to arise, we will be prepared to go virtually if in fact we ever need to.
Okay.
I will be happy to add that to
All right.
the motion.
All right.
So I think we're adding then, as Dr. White and I both said, to give the chair, the superintendent, and the attorney the authority to call those meetings?
Call
Would you-
emergency meeting
Call
to
emergency
implement
meeting.
that, yes.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Just
I'll
want to
add
be
that.
clear.
If
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
not too many points to have in one motion.
That way, if something
That's right.
comes down from the state, the governor, whatever, that puts us more in, you can make that decision on how we will operate.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I would make the point that the chairman and the superintendent have always had the authority to call an emergency meeting.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to miss you on that part.
Now we're going to make it official.
So I do have a motion by our esteemed colleague, Mr. Destin here. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Dr. Kelly makes a second. Any other discussion? Okay, so we're going to vote to continue as is. So let's vote. Dr. White, how do you vote?
Yes, I vote yes.
Okay, so that carries 5-0. We're going to continue as is. Okay. So,
And Mr. Chairman, I would say now that you've adopted your emergency policy and have made this decision, for members of the board, participating by telephone will be perfectly appropriate,
Mhm.
and it would not now require a vote of the board to allow any member or members to do that. And because the quorums have been waived, if more than one of you were to determine for health reasons or health advisories that you were going to participate as well by phone, that would be permissible as we now have the policy set.
And I think what Mr. McGinnis is saying, if any of us don't feel well, keep our little
Stay
self at
home.
home.
yeah, stay home. Stay home. All right. Okay, so real quick, I know it's not on the agenda, but I'm just going to give everybody a chance to just say if you have anything you'd like to say. So, Ms. Vancheck, I'll let you go first. If you.
Well, I'm rarely speechless, but certainly the circumstances are almost speechless. So much to say, but you don't know what to say. But I will say that I want to thank the superintendent and everyone who's worked so hard to put the focus on our students, to feed them, to continue to educate them. I think what we've been able to pull together in this short of time is short of miraculous. I also think we've gotten to see education really at its finest when these teachers are organizing parades through the neighborhoods and things like that. I mean, we know we have such good people in our district, and we all feel so lucky to be in Okaloosa. But I guess a silver lining in such a ominous time is that we get to see it full bloom out there with people really stepping up. And I just want to, wish everybody to stay well, take the precautions, and to thank them for all they're doing. Plus, I want to thank all of our medical and first responder people, out there that I can't imagine the pressure they're going through, and they're helping us be able to do what we're doing here. So beyond that, I just think it's certainly, you can say unprecedented, whatever, but I think it says a lot that we are continuing to move on, and our focus is staying on the education of our students. I don't think anybody thinks that this is the best scenario, but it's the best we can do at the time. So
Right.
thank you.
Okay. Dr. Kelly?
I just have two quick things to say. One is I can't get over the creativity of our teachers, how creative they are in the midst of crisis. I've seen teachers go ahead and do Zoom meetings before we even officially got on Zoom with their parents and with their students, and start maybe going back to the Google Hangout again for their kids or their classrooms, and just doing all kinds of creative things. I'm so amazed and appreciative of the ways that our teachers go above and beyond to still enact that connectiveness with their students. So kudos to all of them for what they do every day and always have done. And then just a special thank you to the members of our staffs who are going in and cleaning after every time someone goes in those buildings or uses a facility, and they've kept that up, Steve, I know, day and night, literally. So those people are really out there touching and feeling and doing everything they can to keep us safe and keep our students safe, and the faculties who visit from time to time. So thank you to the cleaners and our custodial staff too.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Mr. Destin?
Well, just the same story. I want to thank the district staff, the teachers, the support people, the principals. They walked out of one world into another one in a blink of an eye. And, they have adapted. So I'm very proud of the whole bunch.
Yes. Dr. White, you have any comments?
Well, just more like the same thing I said, Mr. Chairman, that certainly appreciate all the work that the superintendent and his staff has done to move us in the virtual direction. And clearly our teachers, our faculties have just been awesome at moving us in that direction. Also, I know from various telephone conferences that I've held that I appreciate the fact that the superintendent and our principals and our faculties and employees are following the guidance in terms of meetings and how many folks attend and how far they're supposed to be apart. Those are all good things, and I appreciate the fact that our folks have been following those guidelines. But I just say finally, good job, superintendent, and kind of trying to pull all this together in short order. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. White. And I'll just end with the same comments that thank you to the superintendent and to all of the employees of the Okaloosa County School District. There is a reason why it says the best in Florida behind us, and it's because of all of our employees who have sacrificed so much in such a short period of time to get today kicked off, even though we did have some speed bumps out there, some bumps in the road. I will say that overall, I feel like the school district as a whole did a fantastic job of getting ready for virtual school. So with that being said, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you, Dr. White.